Hello out there folks, it's Dave here from Davestation VR, and welcome to episode 3 of PSVR Digest. It's the week of August 27th, 2018, and it's probably one of the biggest launch weeks we've ever had for PSVR, so strap in guys, this is going to be a big one. So before we get into the ungodly number of cool new games that came out this week, sorry about your wallets, let's kick it off with some news. Big one this week is Downward Spiral Horror Station. There was a huge mix-up with Sony. They announced that it was coming out this week, and in the Australian and European stores, it even appeared in the store for a few hours before they pulled it down. But the developer was saying up and down, that's not correct. It's coming out mid-September, and if you did happen to buy that game, what you got was a pre-release version. So there's still bugs. The multiplayer is not going to work. So it's coming later, but that was kind of a big mix-up on Sony's part. And if you did manage to grab it, just, give it some slack, come back to it when the day one patch is there. I did a little video on it if you want to check it out. Otherwise, we got Zone of the Enders coming next week. I'm really looking forward to that, and I will definitely be covering it next week. And, this isn't really news. It's not even a rumor. But I've just got this weird inkling that Space Pirate Trainer is coming out soon. Don't quote me on that, but I just feel like they're going to announce a release date or a surprise launch, like, really soon. I could be wrong, but we'll see. Alright guys, without any further ado, let's get into the review wrap-up for this week, because it's gonna be a massive one. So, this week we got so many different games that all fill their own little niche, and in their own way, are really, really well done. And worth buying if there's something that, seems interesting to you. And then we also got Viking Days. But let's get into it. So Catch and Release is the first one I want to talk about. This is the fishing game on PSVR that everyone has been waiting for. We've had Fishing Master, we've had Monster of the Deep, we've had Dream Angling. Those games can take a hike, basically, because this is the most realistic PSVR fishing game, but also it's so casual and fun and relaxing. There's just something about it that's really charming. And even though so many things came out this week, Firewall, everything else, there were times when I just kind of yearned to get back into it. It gives you a certain feeling that I think a lot of people have been waiting for. So you're in this pretty large lake, and you have full traversal of that lake. Like, you're in a boat, you can oar your way around, you can, boat around to wherever you want to go. There's all kinds of different areas. And it's really cool once you get into the swing of, researching a fish in your notebook that you need to catch, and, figuring out where he lives, finding what bait he likes. There's kind of a progression system built in where you have little missions on your to-do list, and as you complete those, you'll get new bait, new rods, new upgrades, that kind of stuff. And that allows you to get new fish. And it just, the kind of thing where you get sucked into it, and you want to stay on that lake for a long time. You'll also see bears and deer and all kinds of wildlife just popping up randomly around the edges of the lake, and that's always kind of a magical moment the first time it happens. The physics on the rod and reel are incredible, just perfectly like a rod and reel. It's so well represented, and once you get the hang of the way you have to use it with the move controllers, it's really, really well done. Another thing I'll say is you have a radio, and the stations actually don't suck. They're pretty good. Really, overall, this game is just so chill, guys. It's so relaxing. It's so beautiful. And once you get into it, I think you're going to have a good time. If you've ever been interested in any kind of VR relaxation experience or VR fishing game or anything like that, check out Catch and Release. Don't skip that one. Next up is Firewall 0 Hour. Now, everyone has been really, really hyped about this game, and personally, I made a video saying, hey guys, be careful about pre-ordering this, it might not live up to the expectations, but somehow, it managed to meet every expectation that anybody had. I'm kind of amazed. This game is actually just great. It's really fun. They're still having some server issues, it's week 1, and there's some issues with squads, but once you get into a match, it's just perfect. It's this intense, tactical first-person shooter with a huge emphasis on team communication, which is one of my favorite things. Even after you're dead, you get on the cameras and you can coordinate your team. Like, I've died before and still been in a winning match where after I died, I could help people through, and it's really satisfying. The only unfortunate thing about the fact that it is so communication-based is that sometimes if you're playing public, you'll get in lobbies with people who don't really want to talk, and it's just kind of unfortunate, because without any communication, it's difficult to play, it's less rewarding. So if you're out there and you got your mic muted, turn it on, man, come on. There is a ton of stuff to unlock in this game, a lot to keep you coming back, you know, customizations, new weapons, modifications for your weapons, and in that way it seems a lot like, you know, everybody's always clamoring for a AAA mainstream first-person shooter with all the bells and whistles, and really the unlock system is pretty much that, and they did a good job there. It might be a little too grindy for some people. There's some stuff you can't really unlock until you get to like level 40, and unfortunately playing private matches doesn't get you any XP. So me personally, I'm like level 4, but as far as graphics go, I was really satisfied with this one. They're a little bit blurry for anti-aliasing to keep down on the jaggies, but the performance never hiccups, and the environment design is just impeccable. The stages are really, really well built, and they look great. Even the VR character models and their animations don't look ridiculous like, you know, any other multiplayer shooter game we have, like Arizona Sunshine or Killing Floor Incursion. If you look at your teammates, they look insane. It's like janky and buggy. This is really well done. They did a great job here. And the sound design is so spot on. Anytime you hear that gunshot sound, it builds the tension so well. Everything is just well represented, and the 3D audio is great. Despite some issues with you know, matchmaking and squads at launch, this is easily the most fun multiplayer or first-person shooter experience available on PSVR by a long shot. Especially if you've got an aim controller, you gotta pick this game up. Some people, you know, may not be into it if online multiplayer is not your thing, because there isn't really a campaign. There's no real single-player mode, and an internet connection is always required to play. So those, I can see being issues, but if those aren't issues for you, this is incredible. This is one of those one more game games where, you know, the match is done and you're like, well, I was going to go to bed 2 hours ago, but shit, let's do another one. And that's all I can say about it, really, guys. It's a ton of fun. I think this is going to build a huge online community for PSVR, sell some headsets, and it's what we wanted, and we got it. And I'm so stoked. All right, so next up is Torn. Full disclosure, I haven't finished this game yet, so it's kind of a review in progress. It's a 6 to 8 hour narrative experience, and with all the stuff that came out this week, I just haven't finished it yet. But I've played maybe the first 3 or 4 hours, and so I'm going to speak to that. Now, it's a story-driven game, like I said, but it's also a sci-fi puzzle exploration game where you're in this abandoned mansion with all this cool steampunk machinery everywhere, trying to hook it all back up and figure out how it works, and at the same time you're trying to bring back into existence the creator of all this stuff, who's floating around the mansion as a little wisp and you know, giving you tips about what to do. So it's a pretty interesting story, and it's from one of the writers of BioShock, so that's, you know, it's got some good pedigree. As I said, it's a puzzle game, but don't let that turn you off if that's not your thing, because really, the puzzles aren't too difficult, and they've got a really good balance of introducing new elements, but keeping you from getting into a place where you're feeling frustrated and stuck. There's always a sense of progression, and I never really got angry at the puzzles or got stuck on something for an hour or anything like that. It's in service of the story. One thing I really want to talk about is the house itself. It's so detailed, and almost every single item is interactive. You can pick up, you know, paintings off the wall, you can pick up vases off the shelf. Any item that you see can basically be interacted with. And some of them are useful for puzzles, some aren't. But just the fact that you can go around and touch and do something to everything is really, really cool and almost unprecedented for a game like this on PSVR. I think as a result of that, there's a little bit of a lack of graphical fidelity, and you can't move too quickly through the game, you can't smooth turn, These are all things that they implemented as a way to keep the performance steady. So there's a lot going on the back end, but there's a few kind of things you have to give up on the gameplay side for that. But as far as I'm concerned, it's totally worth it. The environment design is beautiful, and it feels like you're really there. It could use a few tweaks to the movement system, and I think they might be looking into that. It's mostly set up on one move controller where you hold the move button to walk, and then if you hold the move and the trigger at the same time, you run. And running is basically the only way to get anywhere, because walking is incredibly slow. So I kind of hope at some point they could introduce sort of like a just hold the move button to run as an option or something like that, or set your movement speed. Because it can feel a little slow, and after a while, when you've been holding the move and the trigger all night, it gets to you. You know, your hand kind of hurts. But, that's a minor issue. Once you're enveloped in the game, you won't care too much about that kind of stuff. And like I said, it's pretty long for a narrative PSVR experience. It's 6 to 8 hours, and I would fully recommend this one. I think, if your thing is more of a single-player experience, you're not that excited about Firewall, even if you are excited about Firewall, this is something to definitely look into. Yet another game that came out this week is Bow to Blood, and I think this one's going to be kind of a sleeper hit. People didn't really know much about it beforehand, but it's actually surprisingly deep. It's a single-player airship battle campaign, but it's structured as kind of like a season of Survivor, where you go through and you're making alliances, and there's different matches and people vote on you staying or going. And it's pretty interesting. It's also got some cool elements that are sort of taken from Star Trek Bridge Crew, where you're reassigning power to shields or engines or weapons, and that keeps the gameplay pretty interesting. Each season that you play through is going to be about 5 hours long, if you make it all the way. And they're all randomly generated, so there's different events, there's different enemies, there's different allies, and the situations just change each time. I thought the alliance system was surprisingly engaging, and it's easily as much fun as the actual airship dogfighting itself. A lot of people have mentioned that the graphics in this have some of the most jagged edges as far as PSVR goes, but I really liked the overall color scheme and art design, and it fit really well with the concept. That stuff didn't bother me enough to take me out of the game. I have a review video of this up, so if you want a more in-depth look, go ahead and take a look at that. Overall, I would definitely recommend it if this sounds like something you'd be interested in. It's a lot deeper than anybody realized, I think, a few months ago, and like I said, I think it'll surprise you. Last and most certainly least for this week is Viking Days, which is a Gear VR port for $4.99, and it's a series of 10 Viking minigames, such as grab a beer and drink it, then grab a beer and drink it, then grab a beer and drink it, or throw a thing at a thing, or do some stupid shit. Honestly, it's really not even worth $5. The best thing I can say for it is that it looks okay in the headset. It's a decent port, but really, like, one of the mini games is you tilt with your head to walk over a bridge, and the only obstacle is that there's kind of a rock on the bridge, and you have to go around the rock. Like, there's so many good games this week, guys. Take a pass on Viking Days. Hard pass. Overall, though, despite a tiny bit of shovelware, this week has been really one of the best ever weeks for PSVR releases. No matter what you're into, there's something that's up your alley, and each of those games is, in its own way, really, really well done, and I think worth your time and money. So I'm excited. Hopefully you guys are excited too. It's a good time to be a PSVR owner. As always, let's wrap it up this week with some sales. Apex Construct is 50% off for PS Plus members in the US. That's $14.99, so that's a really good price for that one. Monster of the Deep, the Final Fantasy fishing game, is also 50% off. I almost wonder if it's because they're competing with Catch and Release, but that makes it $14.99. Still buy Catch and Release instead. Catch and Release is 10% off with a PS Plus, and that makes it $17.99. Rick and Morty VR is also 40% off for PS Plus members, but it still hasn't really been patched, and I was pretty frustrated with it. So if you're a huge fan, get it at a discount, but otherwise you might want to pass on it. And of course, Here They Lie is still free for a few more days on PS Plus. It's this month's free game, so grab it before it's gone. And that wraps it up for sales. And that's it for episode 3 of the PSVR Digest. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I appreciate you so much. I'm really excited about the games that came out this week. Hopefully you are too. Hopefully you're not super broke at the end of this week. You might be. But, you know, as always, I appreciate you. And thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time around.